So we're going to be talking about George W. Carver. George Washington Carver was an agricultural scientist and inventor who developed hundreds of products using peanuts, though not peanut butter as is often claimed, sweet potatoes, and soybeans. Born into slavery before it was outlawed, Carver left home at a young age to pursue education and would eventually earn a master's degree in agricultural science from Iowa State University. He would go on to teach and conduct research at Tuskegee University for decades, and soon after his death, his childhood home would be named a national monument, the first of its kind to honor an African American. His early life, he was born on a farm near Diamond, Missouri. The exact date of Carver's birth is unknown, but thought he was born in January or June of 1864. 9 years prior, Moses Carver, a white owner, purchased George Carver's mother, Mary, when she was 13 years old. The elder Carver reportedly was against slavery but needed help with his 240-acre farm. When Carver was an infant, he, his mother, and his sister were kidnapped from the Carver farm by one of the bands of slave raiders that roamed Missouri during the Civil War era. They were resold in Connecticut. Moses Carver hired a neighbor to retrieve them, but the neighbor only succeeded in finding George, whom he purchased by trading one of Moses's finest horses. Carver grew up knowing little about his mother or his father, who had died in an accident before he was born. Moses Carver and his wife Susan raised the young George and his brother James as their own and taught the boys how to read and write. James gave up his studies and focused on working in the fields with Moses. George, however, was a frail and sickly child who could not help with such work. Instead, Susan taught him how to cook, mend, embroider, do laundry, and garden, as well as how to concoct simple herbal medicines. At a young age, Carver took a keen interest in plants and experimented with natural pesticides, fungicides, and soil conditioners. He became known as the plant doctor to local farmers due to his ability to discern how to improve the health of their gardens, fields, and orchards. In his education at the age of 11 is when Carver left the farm to attend an all-black school in the nearby town of Neosho. He was taken in by Andrew and Mariah Watkins, a childless black couple who gave him a roof over his head in exchange for help with household chores. A midwife and nurse, Mariah, imparted on Carver her broad knowledge of medicine and herb and her devout faith. Disappointed with the education he received at the Neosho School, Carver moved to Kansas about 2 years later, joining numerous other African Americans who were traveling west. For the next decade or so, Carver moved from one Midwestern town to another, putting himself through school and surviving off the domestic skills he learned from his foster mothers. He graduated from Minneapolis High School in Minneapolis, Kansas in 1880 and applied to Highland College in Kansas, which is now known today as Highland Community College. He was initially accepted at the all-white college, but later was rejected when the administration learned that he was an African American. In the late 1880s, Carver befriended the Milhollands, a white couple in Winterset, Iowa, who encouraged him to pursue a higher education. Despite his former setback, he enrolled in Simpson College, a Methodist school that admitted all qualified applicants. Carver initially studied art and piano in hopes of earning a teaching degree, but one of his professors, Etta Budd, was skeptical of an African American man being able to make a living as an artist. After learning of his interests in plants and flowers, Budd encouraged Carver to apply to the Iowa State Agricultural School, which is now known as Iowa State University, to study botany, or pretty much agriculture. In 1884, Carver became the first African American to earn a Bachelor of Science degree. Impressed by Carver's research on the fungal infections of soybean plants, his professors asked him to stay on for graduate studies. Carver worked with famed mycologist, fungal scientist L.H. Pamel at the Iowa State Experimental Station, honoring his skills in identifying and treating plant diseases. Then in 1896, Carver earned his Master's of Agricultural degree and immediately received several offers, the most attractive of which came from Booker T. Washington, whose last name George would later add to his own, of Tuskegee Institution, which is now Tuskegee University in Alabama. Washington convinced the university's trustees to establish an agricultural school, which could only be run by Carver if Tuskegee was to keep its all-black faculty. Carver accepted the offer and would work with Tuskegee Institute for the rest of his life. Carver's early years at Tuskegee were not without hiccups. For one, agriculture training was not popular. Southern farmers believed they already knew how to farm, and students saw schooling as a means to escape farming. Additionally, many faculty members resented Carver for his high salary and demand to have two dormitory rooms, one for him and one for his plant specimens. Carver also struggled with the demands of the faculty position he held. He wanted to devote his time to researching agriculture for ways to help out poor Southern farmers, but he was also expected to manage the school's two farms, teach, ensure the school's toilets and sanitary facilities work properly, and sit on multiple committees and councils. Carver and Washington had a complicated relationship and would butt heads often, in part because Carver wanted little to do with teaching, though he was beloved by his students. Carver would eventually get this way when Washington died in 1915 and was succeeded by Robert Russa Martin, who relieved Carver from his duties except for the summer school that was provided at the university. By this time, Carver already had great successes in the laboratory and the community. He taught poor farmers that they could feed hogs acorns instead of commercial feed, and enrich croplands with swamp muck instead of fertilizer. But it was his ideas regarding crop rotation that proved to be the most valuable. Through his work on soil chemistry, Carver learned that years of growing cotton had depleted the nutrients from the soil, which resulted in low yields. But by growing nitro-fixing plants like peanuts, soybeans, and sweet potatoes, the soil could be restored, allowing yield to increase dramatically. When the land was reverted to cotton use a few years later. To further help farmers, he invented the Jessup wagon, a kind of mobile or horse-drawn classroom and laboratory used to demonstrate soil chemistry. Farmers, of course, loved the high yields of cotton they were now getting from Carver's crop rotation technique. But the method had an unintended consequence: a surplus of peanuts and other non-cotton products. Carver set to work on finding alternative uses for these products. For example, he invented numerous products from sweet potatoes, including edible products like flour and vinegar, and non-food items such as stains, dyes, paints, and writing ink. But Carver's biggest success came from the peanuts. In all, he developed more than 300 food, industrial, and commercial products from peanuts themselves, which included milk, Worcestershire sauce, punches, cooking oils, salad oil, cosmetics, soaps, and wood stains. He also experimented with peanut-based medicines such as antiseptics, laxatives, and goiter medication. It should be noted, however, that many of these suggestions or discoveries remained curiosities and did not find widespread applications. In 1921, Carver appeared before the Ways and Means Committee of the U.S. House of Representatives on behalf of the peanut industry, which was seeking tariff protection. Though his testimony did not begin well, he described the wide range of products that could be made from peanuts. which not only earned him a standing ovation, but also convinced the committee to approve a high protected tariff for the common legimen. He then became known as the Peanut Man. In the last 2 decades of his life, Carver lived as a minor celebrity, but he was always focused on helping people. He traveled the South to promote racial harmony, and he traveled to India to discuss nutrition in the developing nations with Mahatma Gandhi. Up until his death, he also released bulletins for the public, which was a total of 44 bulletins between the years 1898 and 1943. Some of the bulletins reported on research findings, but many others were more practical in nature and included cultivation information for farmers, science for teachers, and recipes for housewives. In the mid-1930s, when the polio virus raged in America, Carver became convinced that peanuts were the answer. He offered treatment of peanut oil massages and reported positive results. Though no scientific evidence exists that the treatments worked, the benefits of the patients experienced were likely due to the massage treatment and the attentive care rather than the oil. Carver died on January 5th, 1943, at Tuskegee Institute after falling down the stairs of his home. He was 78 years old. Carver was buried next to Booker T. Washington on the Tuskegee Institute grounds. Soon after, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed legislation for Carver to receive his own monument, an honor previously only granted to Presidents George Washington and Abraham Lincoln. The George Washington Carver National Monument now stands in Diamond, Missouri. Carver was also posthumously inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame. So I got everything off. I got his information off of history.com. I'll put it in the description. The last person we're going to be talking about is coming up Thursday. It's going to be over Frederick Douglass. I should have some more content coming in for the first week of March. So pretty much keep an eye out for that and look forward to what I have planned. Other than that, I'll see y'all on the last video of Black History Month. Bye, guys.